Welcome back to the Food Forest. It's beginning of March. I'm in t-shirt and shorts.
I'm wearing a vest because I actually thought it was colder.
And what we'll do today, it's been a while since I did a video. We'll just do a little walk around. I'll tell you about some plants that I have coming on this spring, and we'll just talk about, what's going on here. No ice in the pond. It's really bizarre. Anyway, let's get going. We'll start a little walk around. So this winter has been really interesting. I don't know if you guys remember Rosie. She's a new Aussie Shepherd that we got last year. So she's growing up and she is a total menace. She is eating all of our trees and taking all of the trunk protectors off and making a giant mess out of the front lawn. So all of our snow melted and you can see she's just ripping stuff out of the food forest and dragging trees and branches. And what I do is often when I prune is I'll just lay stuff down in piles to act as wildlife habitat. But she goes around ripping all the trunk protectors off and all of that stuff, and just being a general nuisance and pest. But we love her. She's just wonderful. Knocking over my bird bath feeder as well. And she's actually eating some of the trees. So this, I actually saw her doing this. This is just a paper birch that I planted because it supports a lot of native insects, and she's actually consuming my trees, ripping all of the trunk protectors off of my little persimmon tree and eating the top of it. That was also her. And I think she's actually pulling some of the trees right out. So thankfully it has been look at this. It has been a fairly mild winter, and it's actually been pretty good for rabbit browse because they can actually, so she ate a hazelnut tree, I think, somewhere, or ripped this off of one. So, if you're a rabbit, you can actually still eat some of these grasses. They're starting to green up. So it takes a little bit of pressure off of the trees. I've been going around putting some of these trunk protectors back on. So even though the rabbits are pretty good, Rosie has been ripping this off multiple times, so I'm trying to put it back. And look what she did to this branch here. Took it right back. It's gonna be really hard for me. I'm gonna have to cut this off and hope that this seals over, but she's taken the wood right down inside the trunk here. That's really, really bad. And then here as well. She jumps up and grabs them and rips them off. And this is a heartnut tree that had a really beautiful shape. So we'll have to cut that off, and hopefully one of the buds on this part of the trunk will activate and give me a new branch coming out this way. Hopefully that happens. Well, we'll see. We just roll with it. We roll with it and see what happens. You can see where the dogs run right here at the front, just back and forth. This used to be a garden bed that kind of swung out and around, and they just cut right through here and destroy all the trees and stuff that I planted. So what we'll have to do is rearrange the style and shape of this front food forest strip and work with what the dogs are telling us they will have as a pathway. So I've got a bunch of trees that I planted in here. These are some service berries, but they're just getting mowed over by the dogs. And some of them are still doing okay. If the trees can get just a little bit taller, then they can handle dealing with the dogs. This is where Lucy will sit all day long and wait for people to walk by the street and greet them with aggravated barking. But she's doing our job. She's doing her job, and she's actually keeping deer and rabbits away, which is really nice. People will often ask me what I do with deer, or what's the best thing to do with deer. If you have a really large property, what you can try to do is kind of rows of thorny plants, and on the deer side, give them something they like to eat, like apples, Jerusalem artichokes. They really like eating the greens of that. But on the human side of that fence, you've got thorns, and then eventually the trees that you don't want the deers eating. However, if you have a smaller property where your dog's influence while they're outside is going to be felt everywhere, then getting an outdoor dog is probably the best thing, because they will bark at anything that comes by, and my dogs are definitely my number one tool for beating deer. So this here behind me that I don't really show very often is a trellis that I made kind of year one, and I put a little birdhouse at the top that I think is now fully claimed by chipmunks. And I put this little cross piece with the wire going back and forth between them because I was growing kiwi up it. You can see the kiwi. I put a little just a little stick there. It's a piece of cedar, and the kiwi wraps itself around. And then we had a natural autumn olive there growing, and instead of removing it, there's autumn olive all around us, so it's not a huge deal if I leave one up. It was a great trellis for the kiwi, so now the kiwi's using that also as a trellis, and then using this. So I might grow grapes here as well. We've got raspberries at the base, and then we've got an apple tree as an overstory just to the south of it. You can see the trunk protector there. And that's getting up over the autumn olive on the south side of it as well. So that'll start shading out the autumn olive in time. That's why we put it on the south side, so that nitrogen fixer doesn't like any competition for sunlight. So as the apple tree gets up and above it, over the years, sorry for kicking the camera, over the years, this will get starved out of light. And then the apple tree will become the trellis for the kiwi, and the autumn olive can just slowly die, and then its roots will shed and feed the apple tree in the future. So that's just some succession planting. You can see this birch tree that's looking beautiful. It's getting its paper birch. So these were some 95-cent birch trees that I picked up a few years ago and just planted them all through the swale, and some of them are starting to do really well. Now at the base of this birch tree, we've got something that I put in. It's the herbaceous layer in this guild a while ago, and this is burdock. And I did burdock because I thought it would be a great plant to get a root crop from. It's a native plant, but I definitely wouldn't recommend it, especially if you have dogs, because they've got these nasty little burrs. And this is something that the dogs bring in all the time. It gets stuck in their fur. I would definitely not recommend burdock in anywhere that you have dogs that are going to go around and pick this stuff up. And they put on a ton of burrs. So what I've been doing in this area is actually overseeding it to clover and then cutting the burdock down. I missed a couple towards the end of the year and they've gone to seed. But they'll just basically keep coming back. But if I can just at the end of the fall go in and cut them right down and use all that organic matter, all the leaf material, mulch with it, then I interrupt that seed cycle, and then slowly the burdock will get starved of energy. It'll take a really long time. I can use that plant as a nutrient battery to feed my soil. In the meantime, as I'm getting rid of it, I can dig up some of the roots and eat them. It's actually a fantastic food. It doesn't really taste like a whole lot. It'll taste like whatever you're cooking it in, but we eat a lot of root crops. And it's good to have root crops in your food forest system for just like a resiliency thing. If the times go really bad, I know that I can come out here to get all this burdock. I can go out and get all my Jerusalem artichokes. It's good to have plants that you can access. If something went sideways, you've got food growing in the ground, just stored in the ground. Even right now, in March 5th, I could get access to a ton of food if I dug up this burdock. So it's not the worst thing in the world to plant. I wouldn't do it again. I would stick with, say, comfrey, even though the roots aren't edible. But just, the burrs are just really, really annoying when you got dogs. So I'm going to stick away from the burdock for now and just cut the leaves down and use them as a battery of nutrients to feed my fruit trees. But you have to be good, and you have to remember in the fall to go do that and cut them and actually access that, and don't let them go to seed. So this is the back side of the food forest looking at the house. I do most of my composting in these bins. Now that I don't have chickens, temporarily anyways, I do the composting in the bins. When I have the chickens, I do most of the composting with the chickens. And I'm talking funny because I just noticed she's eating something. So she's eating, this is where I have haskellapes and strawberries. So she's finding little snacks, as the strawberries are actually not popping up yet. We've got a lot of creeping Charlie that is. And that's just a mint. There's nothing wrong with that. But look, you're getting all these burrs on you, crazy girl. So we're going to walk over to the pond and I'll just kind of take you over with me. This will be a very low edited video. A lot of people don't like it when I edit too much. They just want a real video of me walking around so they can see how things connect. So here's the pond, and this is what it looks like March 5th. Pretty nuts. And people say, you know, what do you do with your pond in the wintertime? And I do have aerators going because we're covered in ice. So you do want some gas exchange for the fish. You want the CO2 that they exhale to be replaced. Then you want oxygen to come in. And the motion of the bubblers will actually prevent freezing. Not really much of a problem. Oh, and look at that. That's where the fish are. Not sure if the glare, if you'll be able to see it. But they're all hiding under this rock shelf. So they're all just sitting under there. That's kind of neat. So I wonder, they're probably wondering what the heck is going on. March, and we've just got a natural pond with no ice on it at all. So just checking out and looking at what's going on with some of these other trees. This sea buckthorn is just so fantastic, and it's thriving on this little peninsula, kind of island, peninsula guild with this peach. And this peach is probably starting to bud out. 15 degrees is usually about where the buds will swell. So I'm a little afraid that all my peaches are going to start breaking bud, getting cracked, and then we'll hit minus 30 or something like that at some point. I did look at the long weather forecast, and we might not get below freezing again, which is absolutely bananas. But maybe that's just a world that we're going to have to get used to. I might start my annual gardens early this year because of that. Take a chance. Maybe I can grow some longer season crops like watermelon or something. And actually, I'll show you something else that I picked up. I don't know if I did a video on this yet. I'll show you a bit of my ugly side of my house here where I store a bunch of my stuff. My wife doesn't really like when I show this. We got this soccer net for the kids, and they never used it. So funny. So I picked all these up. So I found these, found all this wood, and look at this. Made a bunch of raised beds. So we're going to have a bunch of raised beds that we can put together and add to the other system. All this wood was just sitting at the side of the road, going to get thrown out. So we scooped it up. So this is going to be a fantastic addition to our other raised beds over here that we're using. And this is where I grow most of my annual veggies. So we don't just do food forest stuff here. We do like to focus on perennials. And you'll notice I leave my veggie beds completely wild in the off season, because all of this is very valuable insect habitat. And when I plant it out in the spring, that's when I'll actually do my cleanup. So I actually don't clean up yet. I clean up later on. Oh, we've got a bunny. See, so there's tons of benefits for leaving some of this stuff up. Anything like this in the garden bed, the bunnies can snack on it, and I don't really care. And then they're not snacking on, say, my cherry trees that are completely unprotected, but doing fine because they've got all of this that they can snack on. We've got some sorrel coming back up, so that's kind of neat. Could eat some of this. We've got garlic popping up. I've clearly missed some. This is where I've missed cloves because I did soft neck garlic in here. But look at all this fertility. So that's rabbit scat right in my annual gardens. This is seeds from lamb's quarter, so I can spread some of this around. This is a great edible, and I'll get rid of this later, but we'll get a big patch of lamb's quarter in here, and that's great salads. This here is kale, and you can see that the rabbits can actually just come in and browse on some of this old season kale, and they'd rather eat that than a fruit tree. So anywhere you can, I definitely recommend being lazy, being the lazy gardener, leaving some of this stuff up. And don't forget to plant things like mint in and around. I know a lot of people will say mint spreading can take over a place, but you can always just come and chop it all down, lay it down, use it as a, you know, a source of fertility. But you can see how I plant. I got garlic just spread everywhere. It's all coming up in the back there as it's warming up now. It's all coming up down in here, all in the back. We've got grapes reaching over into this trellis this year, so we'll get a nice big span of grapes across there, and we'll draw them right across that whole back. We've got a few mounds of compost and biochar kind of cooking away that we'll get access to, and we'll start to fill some of those beds. This will probably be the top maybe 1/4 inch of those new raised beds that I had. And we'll do another run of biochar. Probably, actually we could probably do it now, it's warm enough. So I think maybe I'll leave it at that. I'm just walking around now kind of rambling a bit. But I think it's kind of really fun that we're already getting back into garden season. Can't wait to get our new chickens and sealed up the chicken coop so we won't get that mink in there again. For anyone who doesn't know, we had a mink climb in through a tiny little 1/4 inch crack that they went in and slaughtered all the chickens. But you can see where our little chicken Disneyland is growing. We've got all of this. These are some Carpathian walnuts that we're growing using the fertility of the chicken run that we can actually, this can access. We've got tons of kiwi. This is cold hardy kiwi that's growing up and into over top, along with grapes coming in from the other side. Any grapes that fall on this roof, fall down into the chicken pen. They can pick them up. We've actually trained the kiwi to grow through the wires of the chicken fence, so then they'll be able to browse and get at any kiwi that fall from this. And then we've got raspberries creeping in. They absolutely love raspberries. They'll come in here and they'll jump up and nip at the raspberries. It's so cute. So we're kind of creating a little chicken wonderland in here, and then using an overstory tree like a Carpathian walnut to be the long-term shade from the top and the long-term fertility sponge of this whole entire area. And they're doing so well, and the kiwi is growing right up into them. So here's another one, and then they'll act as a trellis for the kiwi and shelter from birds, at least a visual shelter from birds of prey, and the chickens can kind of hang out in there. And then grapes on this back side here. So really fun little project. I want to expand this out over the years and probably double or triple the size of this, and create a little take it all the way down here, right back into, ideally into the Jerusalem artichokes, and plant all this out. As these grow up, I'll move the chicken fencing and then eventually make a huge area, and then maybe one day run meat birds or something like that, just as a resiliency thing. We're actually cutting out meat almost completely. Unsustainably grown meat has been cut out completely, and we are now in contact with a regenerative ag beef cattle farmer, and we get hamburger meat, for example, for the kids from them. So at least we're minimizing the impact of any meat that we do eat, and drastically reducing how much meat we have in our diets. So, and I know I said I would leave you, and I will, but it's just so fun to be out talking gardening again, isn't it? This is a cherry. This is a Hendelfingen. How do you say it? Hendelfingen. It's a sweet cherry. We've got a sour cherry in the back there, and then we've got mulberry here. This is doing really well. Chickens will love mulberries, so really want to get those established. And then we've got persimmons that are doing well. They should survive this winter no problem. I don't even need to do a scratch test on this. I can tell that this thing is alive. So these persimmons will do really well in this new climate that we've got. That's why I planted it here. This part might be dead, but this part I can tell is alive still. So I think we'll move into persimmons and some warmer climate stuff. Our peaches should do really well over the next while as the climate warms. Cherries should continue to do well. Apples will continue to do well. So we just have to adjust what we're growing and always add more things to the food forest. And we'll just, we'll work on it from there. So thanks for watching. It's been a while, but it's been, just trying to relax before the main season starts. But man, is it fun to get out here again as the weather warms up. I'll see you on the next one.